Hey everybody, Shawn Gray, Presidential Master Coordinator here. And I am super excited to spend this casual one-on-one time with a great friend and a great mentor for everyone in Shackley, certainly for Carmen and I, Mr. Roland Oosterhouse from Nashville, Tennessee, Presidential Master Coordinator. And, Roland, thanks for being on the call, sir. I appreciate you taking the time, being willing to chat with me. I think we're gonna have some fun.
Well, it's always good talking to you, Shawn. It really is good. This is an honor to be able to do this and help other people in the business. That's the way I look at it.
I think it's great. Well, when I thought about trying to throw something together where we could take guys that are really icons in Shackley that have seen, multiple even decades or maybe even a couple generations worth of the historical context of Shackley and what it takes to be successful and what their stories are, you're the first guy that popped into my mind. And I think just your story and your insight is going to help a lot of people as they go through different stages and certainly the earlier stages of their business. And I'd love to jump right in. I think that everybody loves to hear well, how did you find it? How did it find you? Or what was your deal before you found Shackley and how'd you get started in this business? And when was that?
Well, in the late 60s, I was working in a service station or a petrol station while I was going to college.
Okay.
And the guy comes in and says, "You want to feel better?" Okay. I go, well, where's this going here?
No.
I said, yeah, tell me more about it. He said, if you take a couple products, in 30 days, you're guaranteed better health.
Really?
And I said, okay. I never saw the guy again. He skipped out of Shackley, owing the people that I got the product from, owing the people that had sponsored him in, and they had sponsored me under him. He owed them $80.
Are you serious?
And he left town, and he is losing thousands of dollars monthly because he didn't stay with him. Never saw the guy again.
That was the only time, but you didn't know him. He was a cold market. He was just some guy that asked you that question. You said, sure. You get started. You meet his upline. You go on to become, one of the most iconic presidential masters in all of Shackley. And that guy that told you about it left and literally lost what would be generational millions and millions of dollars. That's wild.
Exactly.
That's wild.
Well, I didn't get started with the business right away, Shawn, because I used the product and I thought network marketing, that's not for me, because I was going to be a school teacher.
Okay.
And so I started with the product. I liked the product worked. And what also happened, I started listening to cassette tapes at that time.
Okay.
I heard Dr. Shackley.
Mm.
And Dr. Shackley was about the dream, about the mission. And I could feel comfortable with that. I'm an introvert.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking of network marketing was not my field.
Sure.
But if I thought about the dream and the mission, I could connect with that because I was not doing it totally for self-centered.
So what was it that Dr. Shackley talked about? What was it in the dream or the mission that he talked about, which would have been the late 60s, which we're talking 40 plus years ago, right? That connected with you at that time? What hit you? I mean, 40 years ago compared to today, is it the same dream and mission that we talk about today, or what was it?
Maybe not as much, but he talked about helping humanity, helping other people. If you help enough other people, don't worry about the money. The money will be there. And he just kept emphasizing that and again and again and again. And of course, later on, I had a chance to talk with Dr. Shackley personally, which was really, really good. But I told other people about Shackley too. I said, you want to feel better? As they were complaining about their health. They started using Shackley, and I said, no, I'm not in the business, but if you want to feel better. I started getting customers.
Okay.
And finally, I said, look, I'm making a little income.
Mm-hmm.
What would happen if I really pursued the dream and the mission?
Sure.
And so I sat down and figured out, wow, this is what I can do. I'm not opposed to working hard. And so I created a dream. And I followed with that dream. And I didn't know what I was doing.
Sure.
I knew you were supposed to do meetings. That's all I knew. I had this one distributor who talked too much, turned everybody off, but that's the only thing I had. I'd sit around the kitchen table and say, you talk about that product and I'll talk about the business. That's all I had. And once the guy started talking, he wouldn't shut up.
Oh, boy.
He kept going. But coincidental things happened that I met some people, the last likely people in the world to ever do Shackley. They were in poor health, on disability income and everything else, but they tried the product, liked the product, and he happened to be in a singing group called the Barbershoppers.
Okay.
And the other barbershoppers said, "Wow, you're looking good." He said, "Thanks." He knew enough not to say too much. And that's the very key today. Become a professional listener.
Great point.
Not a seller.
Can you repeat that? Because I think that's a great point.
Become a professional listener.
What does that do for people? Because people think, I mean, when people join, they think, how good can I be at influencing or talking or presenting? That's different than what you're telling me. Why so?
Especially in today's market, Shawn, because so many people in this digital era don't listen to anybody.
Sure.
If somebody says on Facebook, "Hey, I got a sick cat," they got 15 people telling them what they can do for their cat. So the market has their arms folded. They're on the defensive. I want what you have, but don't you try to sell me. So the thing I work on all the time with people, don't get into sales.
Right.
Why do we have to beg people to come into something that's so fantastic?
Sure.
We've got products that work. We have an incredible opportunity. Why do you beg people? They're hurting.
Yeah.
So I understood that early on. And as an introvert, it fit very well. But this guy started talking to other barbershoppers, and I was doing meetings and so on. And from a point of having probably 15, 20 customers, in 3 months, I had 80 people coming to an in-home meeting, or to my meeting at my house.
Okay.
We had to take the furniture all out, put it on the front lawn,
I love
folding chairs. People were standing for the home meeting, no air conditioning, people sitting on the floor, pandemonium growth. This is a real function.
Right.
And I know you've seen that in China, where you get enough people in and it explodes.
Sure.
These are concepts that I try to teach people today, what you must do to get that pandemonium growth. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
They must understand how that works, and that's where we can save a lot of time.
And it seems like what you're saying in the beginning was very simple. Like your pitch was, do you want to feel better? Right. And you weren't, I mean, your opening with people was very simple because that's what you heard. Right. And then that's what you just did. So how long number one, is that true? And then number two is how long from the time you tried the products, which obviously they must have made an impact on you, to start asking the question, to the point that you said, wow, let me do this for a business. Well, how long was that time frame?
1 year.
It was a year. Okay. So you used the products without really thinking about the business for a year.
Right.
Okay.
I did not think about it.
And so was the upline, your sponsor's upline, were they engaged in communicating with you during that time? Were they nurturing? Were they watering the garden, so to speak, in that time? Were they connecting with you?
Not very much, because they were 2,000 miles away. And so just encouragement. In fact, I was in California going to school, and they thought when I moved back to Michigan, they said, we'll never see him again.
Sure.
So they didn't have any hope in me. But once again, I believed in the mission. And I believed in making a decision.
Sure.
And I remember getting from the mailbox an envelope from Shackley. And it said, if you do this and this and this, you can go to a trip to Hawaii, all expenses paid. Well, as a farm boy, I'd never traveled.
Right.
Not much. And here was an opportunity to have a free trip. I didn't have hardly any business at that point, but in 6 months, qualified for that trip. That's where I met Dr. Shackley.
Okay.
And meeting him, he had this charisma of belief and feeling for mankind that just oozed out of his pores. It was contagious.
Wow.
In fact, I remember a time there was a big meeting in Chicago and Dr. Shackley was going to be there. There were 3,000 people. He had not appeared yet, but somebody thought they saw him way, way, way up in the balcony.
Right.
And now here's a speaker, an executive speaker from Shackley on stage doing a message and on a roll.
Yeah.
And somebody stands up in the audience and says, Dr. Shackley. And the whole audience just stood up and started applauding.
That's crazy.
He had that charisma.
Yeah.
And if you really have that dedication, you have a charisma that's going to attract other people. If we don't have the belief, we haven't made the decision, then we do not have good energy for other people. And people don't realize how many people you're going to bring into your life. And you say, well, that was coincidental. No, you drew them in when you have that good feeling. And I feel this is so important today to make us stand out so strong and powerful, because most companies work on just excitement and activity. And so therefore we are unique with what we have.
I agree. So I think your point right there, Roland, is super strong, that it's about decision, commitment, and attractiveness and charisma to bring good things into your life. Now, how old were you when somebody first approached you at the gas station?
22.
22. You were young, you know? I mean, you're still young, but you were younger then. So, so that understanding of the decision and a commitment and charisma and attracting things like that, making a decision, belief, did you get that right at 22? Or is that something you grew into and learned from experience? Or did you have somebody sit down and say, look, this is how life works, Roland? Or how did that come to be?
I grew into it very quickly on my own.
Okay.
Because I also worked at an insurance company after teaching school a little bit.
Okay.
And they heard I was talking to people about Shackley. They said, you can only do one or the other.
Okay, right.
I'm making $200 a month in Shackley. And I said, I'm doing Shackley.
And you walked away from everything else, and I'm doing Shackley. And how long was this after you decided to start working the business? A couple of years, a year or two?
No, it was probably 4 months.
4 months in. Okay.
4 months in.
$200 a month. And
so I learned fast. I made mistakes that I never made again. As an example, I had this customer, older lady, about 80 years of age. I said, you're going to notice this. You're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have more stamina. And I talked to her about a week later, and I said, so do you feel better? Are you sleeping less? And And she said, maybe. You have more energy? Maybe. I thought, wow, this is crazy. She's 80 years of age, and that's the answer I'm getting.
Right.
I couldn't figure it out. A week later, I get a call from her daughter that says, I want some of that stuff my mother is raving about.
Really?
I took her thunder away, and I never did it again. So when I hear a story, whether it's on the business or whether it's on the products, it's like I've never heard that story before. Because people want to tell, just like a child wants to tell what they discovered. This is a discovery business.
Super great.
Not what I'm going to discover, but it's what they discover. So therefore, I sat down with her again, and I said, so any comments on Shackley? I don't say, did you like it? I learned never to ask people, did you like what you use?
Never ask.
Do you have any questions?
Yes.
Do you have any questions? And so she started talking, and I just listened. And every time she said something good, I just clapped my hands and said, that's great, Isla. That's great. She became a director, 80 years of age.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. So I learned a very valuable lesson. Don't take their thunder away. Celebrate what they have as success. So many people in Shackley get started. They do very well because they don't know much. Right. So they listen and ask questions. Right. Then they know something, and they have to educate the world, and their business doesn't do as well.
Super right.
And so that's why I tell people, I don't care what it is. If they say the basic H, they generally say, it worked. It worked. Great. How did it work?
Yeah.
Well, my windows are better. They get a little more vocal.
Sure.
Because they know I'm not going to try to push them into it.
Right.
I just compliment. Pretty soon they're telling me, as she did, of people who should hear about Shackley. If we're patient, they will bring all the people in for me.
For sure.
Instead of trying to go out there and educate the world and give them all the fancy presentations and so on, there's a time for it.
Sure.
But not in the beginning.
Sure.
You're going to be dead in the water.
Super great point, because you can, it's almost counterintuitive for a lot of people, especially as they have a little knowledge, like you say. So if you can get people, I mean, you teach a new person this, you talk to new people about, look, here's how you communicate. You just ask a lot of questions and you just listen, and then you ask a question about their answer. And I mean, do you talk with people early on about that idea?
I do a lot of planning with people initially because I let them know I'm a good coach and I know how to do it. We've got the product, we have the market, and I know how to tap the market. That's my mantra. That's what I keep repeating. And I can teach you some basic skills if you want the coaching. And the best way is a three-way call.
Sure.
Do not go out there talking to your friends. I will tell you how to set up the three-way call. You get 3 times from them that work, and you hear how I communicate with people on the products and on the business. You record the call, so you have something to go back to refer to. You've got to hear not just what I say, but you've got to hear how I say it, the pauses, the voice inflection.
Sure.
That is so important today because, like I said, in the digital age we're in, people are always trying to figure out that person they're talking to.
Sure.
Because we have nothing else to go on.
Sure.
Therefore, I'm trying to figure out, can I trust them? Trust is the biggest thing today. If we need a plumber, I need a plumber. I go to the neighbor and I say, who do you trust? Because he knows a lot of people. He's had work done at his house. Trust is the biggest thing. I don't get trust trying to sell them.
Right.
I get trust by being a friend and listening.
Super great point. Yeah. Super great point. Yeah. They trust you when they're talking, not when you're talking. Right. It's funny.
And I become an expert.
Right.
Like I give people the example. If you were to drive in the driveway and I say, wow, do you rotate your tires?
Right.
Well, I think so. I mean,
right.
How frequently? Do you have any vibration? Well, maybe. In other words, what's wrong? Tell me.
Right. I love it. I love it. So super great life skills. I mean, this is like, years and years of experience that we're compressing here, that if people really take these points and put them inside of their DNA and learn and really, really understand, like really get it, and then change how they act. Because you don't really understand something until you use it to change how you act, not just intellectually understand it. I think that's solid. So let me ask you this: when you were in the early days, late 60s, 70s, what was the environment like in network marketing, direct selling? Was there a lot of competition? Was it were people super open to talking about health products? What was it like compared to today?
Many people, a high percentage of people had the belief and the charisma and the mission. And therefore, when you get enough people, then the crowd joins.
Many people inside Shackley had that.
Yes.
Yes.
So everything was just growing. And if you did not break out a lot of directors in 1 year, you weren't at the top of the list or anywhere near it. Right. So the focus was everybody was going to become a master coordinator, which is the other thing that I talk about with people, and the thing that I talk about with Queso as well. He only talks about key master and presidential master.
Right.
So the bar was way up there. And this is the thing that I've been working on and helping people to raise the bar much higher. And I remember the person who sponsored me into Shackley from California, they would come and do a meeting maybe every 6 months in Michigan. I'd have a couple of people. But I remember sitting at the table and just talking to her, and she says, "Are you going to be a master coordinator?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Are you going to be a master coordinator?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Are you going to be a master coordinator?" And I said, "Yes." Right. Said, that's the answer I wanted.
Right. So
everything was about becoming a master coordinator. And when you have that belief, Shawn, we'll do wild things. So people are really growing. We have all these people come to the meetings. I mean, it was just incredible. And of course, we had to supply all the products. People could not order directly from Shackley.
So what do you mean?
You had to buy case lots.
You would buy cases of product.
Cases of products, because we furnished all the products to the people. And anybody coming in, they had to put in few $1,000s for products. That was just standard.
So they had their stock, right? They had.
So they had skin in the game, and that was another big factor.
Sure.
But we couldn't get products fast enough. They came from California.
Okay.
And it took a couple of weeks to get them. We didn't have time to wait. People are begging for products.
Right.
And so we said, okay, to a couple of other sales leaders, let's air freight them in. We paid extra to get these things flown in on an airline. They generally came in 12 o'clock at night. Some of the cartons were crushed. We took it anyway. We were so desperate for products. Then finally, Shackley had a warehouse in Minneapolis. We thought, oh, thank goodness, it's going to be closer than California. Instead of 2,000, 3,000 miles, you're going to be about 1,000 miles away.
Right.
It still took a week and a half to get products on a truck because they stop in Chicago and then get to Michigan.
Sure.
People are begging for products, pleading with. You talk about back orders to customers, tons of back orders. So what I did, I would drive to Minneapolis. 13 hours one way.
13 hours
all night long.
Oh boy.
8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I was there to get the order, not only for myself, but for all the other sales leaders. That car was packed to the ceiling, the trunk, everything was packed. In fact, I took bottles out of the cartons so I could put them in the glove box. When I got home, people were waiting in the driveway for their products.
Unbelievable.
And so those were the things that we would do when you have that mission. And that's why many people who come in and they can't understand the mission, they may not go very far in this business.
Sure. So like when you were in those early days, when you were talking to a general person out in the street, someone that didn't know about Shackley, what was the opinion of direct selling? What was the direct selling market in general like? What was in general about nutrition or health? I mean, were people open-minded to talk about health products or like today, I think most people are at least aware. It seems like even younger generations are talking about, health products. And was it the same then? Was it different? How did people look? Was there competition in network marketing? What was it like?
Amway was 150 miles away.
From where Amway's home headquarters was 150 miles away from your house.
So yes, there was competition.
A lot of it, yes.
And unfortunately, not to put Amway down, but a lot of people were fooled. They came to a presentation, they didn't know what it was. And therefore, all the more reason why sitting down with people, even at that time, and getting the trust was so valuable. Trying to go in with a presentation would never have worked at that time either. So it was sitting down with people, and then they could have a trust. In fact, the people that really started going into business, the ones that were on disability income and everything else, they'd been in Amway. There was a lot of distrust. The reason I went to their house is because we had a guy living with us because he was kicked out of his home. And he said, I've got this girlfriend whose parents have a car they want to sell. Will you go with me? I said, yeah, I'll go with you. I sat in their house and thinking, there's nothing here, folks. Nothing at all. That's okay. They said, what do you do? And I've learned to say very little. I've got to get 3 questions from people. If you don't get 3 questions, it's not going to work.
Okay.
The more information, the less questions.
Right.
So therefore, they said, what do you do? I work out of my home.
Right. Be quiet. I work out of my home. Yeah.
So what do you do out of your home? I'm in the health field.
Right.
Oh, okay. What do you do in the health field? Well, I've got a product in 30 days. People can take it. In 30 days, they don't feel better, they get the money back.
Right.
5 minutes later, the guy says, well, we're going to try some.
Right.
Okay. Where do we get it? I can get it for you.
Right.
So they got the product, they used it for 30 days, and they said, we cannot afford to take it because we're not even able to pay our bills. But after 3 days, they said, we can't afford to be without it. Continued using the product, and he continued the same way of presenting Shackley by not saying much.
Wow.
The other barber shoppers would say, what are you doing, Al? Well, you're looking good. Thanks. Never felt so good.
Right.
5 minutes later. So what are you doing, Al? It's working. What's working, Al? See, the more questions they ask, the more interest they have. And so the third question, they said, well, what are you doing? Well, I found something I can take, 30 days guaranteed better health.
Sure.
How can we get it, Al? I can get it for you.
Sure.
So that's when these other barber shoppers started using Shackley. That opened up the door for me to talk to these people. and sit down with them, become a friend, get the trust. And from that point on, it's only about 2.5 months, there were 80 people coming to an in-home, to a meeting at my house.
Wow, that's awesome. You know, you just take a look at that, and that was what, in the early 70s sometime, right? Ish.
Yes.
Okay. And you look at over the last 40 years or something. I mean, what kind of life has Shackley provided for you and your family? I mean, what's it, if you had to put in a nutshell, you know, what kind of a life it's given you, both non-materially and materially, how would you summarize that?
Exhilarating.
That's a great word. Great word.
Because I'm earning an income, but I enjoy doing it so much.
Mm-hmm.
And the best gratification is when I have somebody come back to me and say, thank you, thank you, thank you, you changed our life, either with the products or maybe it's a career now for them. And they're elated about what they're doing, what they're discovering. That is a gift that I could never give for myself in any way, that feeling. It has to come from other people. And so I keep getting that gift. Like, I really work with people and helping them to understand, I can't really help you until I know where you want to go and make a decision. But getting them to have a new focus on life and see things they've never seen before, because until you make the decision, you will not explore the future.
Do you think people today are looking for the same things that they were looking for 40 years ago, or is it different?
More than ever before. More than ever before, but I feel most people in network marketing of any type, and many people in Shackley, want to sell. I don't sell. When I do a presentation on the products on a three-way, as an example, or on the business, I ask a lot of questions, gather information, and I say at one point, would you like me to tell you what I would do?
Sure.
I don't say, here's for something I think you should do. Then it's up to discussion.
Right.
Like, and I tell people, you don't recommend. Recommending will kill you. If I'm recommending something, then that means it's open to discussion. Well, maybe we can recommend this. No. I'll tell you exactly what to do. So would you like me to tell you exactly what I would do? Yes, I get permission marketing.
Right.
And so then I go through what I would do with their liquid intake, their food and everything else. And by that time, I know what they can handle mentally. So it's not the same for everybody.
Sure.
Then at the end, I say, look, I'm not trying to sell you on anything. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. Basically, 100% of the people say, well, I'm going to do what you went over. And I say, that's great. You don't have to. No, I'm going to do it. I've got to get people buying into this 100%. The same thing is true with the business. When I go over something on the business with somebody, I start out right away saying, I'm not trying to sell you. All I do is inform you what I have and what I feel is so phenomenally good.
Right.
And you can do whatever you want to do. And they open up. And at the end, I say, please understand, think about it. I give people 24, 48 hours to think about whether they want to move to the next step. Right. Not whether they want to do Shackley. I tell them, I don't want a commitment from you because I'm giving my time too.
Sure.
And therefore, I want you to understand, I'm in the game with you. And I realize things can change in 6 months.
Absolutely.
But I've got to know as best as possible what the situation is.
If the person,
I've got to know if they've got a negative spouse who's putting them down all the time, what the circumstances they're dealing with.
Right.
So many people are so quick to say, if somebody says, yeah, I'm interested, great, I'll do meetings for you, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. I say, okay, you live in Florida, you live southern part of the United States.
Sure.
And they live in Fairbanks, Alaska. You're going to immediately go up there and start doing meetings? No. I said, well, why did you find out first?
Right.
So I do a lot of planning initially with people, and therefore I build the trust, and I move them to the next two steps. The next two steps. If you feel comfortable with what we've covered, then these are the next two steps, and please get back with me in 24 or 48 hours. And boy, I tell you, they are buying into it 100%.
Sure.
Because if they buy into it 90%, 80%, that's not the best deal.
Absolutely. No, then you end up wasting your time. You end up spending a bunch of time and energy, and it's just not the right person, you know?
That's right.
So And it's super valuable because you remember what it's like when you're new, when you're just getting started. You're like, somebody said maybe even, wow, that's great, and let me do this. And all of a sudden you've spent months of energy on somebody, and you look back and this has got you nowhere. And so if people can learn that earlier on, I think that's super powerful. On top of that, what are the top? Do you have 2 or 3 other qualities in a person that's starting today? Maybe they've been with us for a little while. They want to make a decision to go to that next level and become a master, or they're just starting today and they're really wanting. What are the top 2 or 3 qualities that pop into your head that they would need to have?
They've got to be honest with themselves.
Okay.
Many people have these blocks that they would not admit to.
Mm-hmm.
They had a problem in another network marketing company in the past. They've got most of it all revolves around fear.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to talk about the fear. Many people think if I give a better presentation, they're going to be inspired. Yeah, for 24 hours.
Right.
But we've got to get to the nitty gritty. Maybe it's a lack of confidence. I've had people that lack a lot of confidence. They have a desire. They haven't made a decision yet. They have a desire. And they said, what's holding you back? What is it? Well, if they don't open up about it after a bit, then I say, can I tell you what I see? And I always tell them why they're good. We don't compliment people enough.
I agree with that.
Busy trying to present. If people would compliment and ask questions, you got the game. You got the game. Like I tell people, it's like a child comes in with a drawing and the parent compliments and asks questions.
Right.
Go, wow.
Right.
You got animals on there, don't you?
Right.
Uh-huh. And you know your animals. Uh-huh. What colors do you have? Pink and red and pink and red. You know your colors. 10 minutes later, there are 10 more drawings.
Right.
We take the thrill of discovery away from people too often.
Great point.
So I want them to be honest. And when they get to the point of honesty about their lack of confidence, I say things like, I can help you if you want help, but do you trust me? I don't expect you to have a clear picture of the future. You can have a desire for the future and make a decision on the future, but I don't expect you to have a clear picture. You've never been there before, but you better trust me.
Sure.
Do you trust me?
Sure.
That's the question I ask. Yes, I mean this. Do you really trust me? Because I know what I'm doing. I know what has to take place. So then I give them exercises to help them with their self-esteem. Simple exercises.
Like what? What would you do?
When you get up in the morning, you stand in front of the mirror for 3 minutes and you tell yourself how good you are. You make an audio when you're really feeling good, telling you how good you are.
Right.
And you listen to it every day.
Right.
You think of 3 things that you can be thankful for when you wake up in the morning. You do affirmations. Explaining how to do affirmations. We've got to help them change their thinking.
Right.
So giving a better presentation does not necessarily help them change their thinking.
I agree. Yeah.
They've got to be honest. And so I help them to be honest, face the reality, face the real stuff. And then, yes, I can help you if you believe me. And are you willing to change those things?
Cool. Gosh, that just
Such
sets
a difference.
Straight up from the beginning. You're helping people just right from the beginning have the proper framework. I think that's
right.
amazing. That's amazing. So if you were to go back and give yourself, tell your young self something, I wish I knew then what I know now type thing. Would there be one piece of advice that you'd tell your younger self back at that time or no?
Yes, have the belief to build master coordinators. I was not thinking of building master coordinators. I was thinking of being a master coordinator. If you want to be a master coordinator quicker, then you focus on building master coordinators.
Sounds like semantics, but it's not. It's very, very, very different. Yes.
Because the focus is totally different. If
Right.
I'm looking for a bunch of directors and so on, so I can make master coordinator, all I'm doing is looking for them to have a good network of customers and
Sure.
a couple people want to grow. But if I'm looking at them as a master coordinator, possible master, unless they prove me wrong,
Right.
unless they're really not into it, that's okay. We love them where they are.
Right.
But I'm going to treat them differently. My expectations are different.
Sure.
I'm going to plan differently with them. Everything is different. And so that's one thing that I would have done early on.
Great point.
Is to focus on building,
Great point.
not the presidential, but building many master coordinators.
Right.
And that's why, like Queso from Malaysia has a program that's called After Presidential.
Mm.
It's not presidential, it's beyond presidential.
That's great. I love it. I love it. What do you, last one for you, Roland. Well, how do you see, this has been super valuable. I mean, this has been probably some of the most content rich, real stuff that I've heard in a long time, you know, and I'm grateful for it. I really am. I think it's going to change a lot of people's thinking. Because a lot of times you can sit in and have a conversation, get through training with people, and you get done and there's just a lot of fluff. There's, you know, we can sit and, but when it comes right down to brass tacks of what really needs to happen here, you've covered a ton and it's been awesome. Last question for you. What do you think the future looks like for Shackley, both domestically and around the world? I mean, how are we positioned? I mean, we're older than anybody else. We got a great story. What do you see happening over the next 20 years with Shackley?
I feel that Shackley can grow bigger, faster than it ever did even back in the 70s.
Really?
The market is prime. People want what we have more than ever before.
Sure.
In the past, people were doubting about taking supplements. In fact, you were strange if you took supplements.
Back in the 70s, was it that way? If you talk to people about taking supplements, did a percentage of the people look at you like, what, are you crazy? Or,
oh yeah, you're a health food nut.
Okay.
So that's what we were dealing with.
Right.
But today, people want what we have.
Sure.
But they've got to trust you. They're looking for somebody they can trust. And consequently, because the market is so huge, let's face it, people are not getting healthier.
Right. Right.
And we've got more people aware of the fact that maybe this job isn't going to last.
Sure.
And so getting people to think past, how can I possibly become a director? That's what I have been focusing on for years.
Sure.
And in fact, I've gone over this with people at Shackley and said, look, in 18 months, we can have incredible growth. Right. You know, at the time, Shawn, I told one of the executives at Shackley a number of years ago, I said, you can put Shackley Canada on the map.
Right.
I said, because they didn't have any growth. And he said, well, okay, do it. It was the best thing you could have said.
Yeah.
Said, we'll back you financially. I said, okay. So every 45 days, I would start on the East Coast and go to another city every day to the West Coast, 7 cities, and it was all leadership. It was all about building organizations. When I talk to building an organization, it's at least 10 directors total.
Right.
And that's all I did.
Right.
And after a year, the executive at Shackley said, we're not getting much results here. Been paying you money. I said, you don't turn the ship around overnight, but it will turn around. After 18 months, Shackley Canada was growing at 15%.
Wow. It
had never happened before. Then a new person came in and said, I don't think this is necessary anymore.
That's pretty wild.
That's what can happen if people really get people to focus on the bigger picture. And that's why Queso is so phenomenal, because he has an incredibly large organization.
Right.
He has close to 100 masters and above in his own group.
That's pretty wild. That's very wild. That's awesome.
I mean,
so you feel like the future of Shackley, we are going places, and we have the ability to do amazing things at amazing heights. And that's just where we sit right now in the world today with our product offering, with what Roger's done to help rebrand this thing and revitalize it over the last 15 years. We're at a pivotal point. Yeah.
It's so huge. I mean, we've got the products that back us up.
Agreed.
And therefore we have an incredible opportunity with the business, but the field must realize that it's the field that grows the field.
Right.
That's what we've got to do. And if we start talking presidential, in fact, since Queso has come on the scene, I have more people in my group talking master coordinator than ever. It's just changed their lives.
Awesome.
They ask questions differently, and that's a good key. What kind of questions are people asking?
Right.
And you can tell immediately what level of thinking they are based on their questions.
Absolutely.
And so, but the future, can be so fantastic. I feel we can build more master coordinators than we've ever built, and it's going to affect every country in the world. And Shackley will then move into other countries, and we have an incredible, incredible global opportunity.
Absolutely.
Just right there in our own backyard.
I agree. Best story in the industry, in my opinion, and yet we have the whole world to grow into. So
that's right.
Roland, I can't thank you enough, my man. This has been super, super valuable and is going to change a lot of people's lives. So, you know, I appreciate your willingness to just kind of be open and go back and forth. I think that's better than a structured thing like this. I just to hear what's on your heart and what's in your mind. And so this has been awesome. I can't thank you enough.
Well, I appreciate doing this, and it's always good talking with you, and thank you for the opportunity.